So, to prepare for Fantastic Beasts 2, The Crimes of Grindelwald, I decided to revisit the first movie of this eventual trilogy, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And even though I saw this movie way back when it first debuted in theaters in 2016, I never did anything on it up until now. And to prepare, I decided to revisit it. And I gotta say, even though it's only 2 years old, this film has not aged well. It has not aged well at all. And despite me even liking a lot of the Harry Potter movies, of which this is a prequel to, I got to say, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them has some of the most glaring and obvious flaws out of any of the Harry Potter movies released up until this point. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the story and the structure, which is just basic writing that this movie completely fails at. And this is writing that even movies like the Marvel movies almost consistently get right, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them just can't get it right. I mean, what's interesting about watching Colin Farrell antagonize Ezra Miller while a couple of wet blankets walk around trying to catch uninspired creatures?
Merlin's beard. Exactly the same. Same thing.
The Obscurial.
Like, dang, he's looking for a sloth, but it can go invisible. Wow, a rhino that has a thing on its horn. I mean, Pokemon have way better creature design than this movie does. It has it in spades, but that's a little off topic. Back to structure and storytelling. The first of a trilogy always has a big task on its hands. It has to establish characters, it has to establish world, it has to establish conflict, villains, protagonists, and make everything compelling enough for you to want to see the two that follow it up. And unfortunately for Fantastic Beasts, it doesn't do any of this very well, and it really does bank on the audience knowing Harry Potter before seeing this movie. It really doesn't do a very good job of introducing you to this world or teaching you the mechanics of the world in any interesting way. It just throws you into it and says, this is what it is. Sorry if you don't know what's happening. The first hour is spent explaining how all of these magical creatures get set loose in New York and them trying to capture one. And then they get captured themselves and get sentenced to death to the most convoluted death trap since a Saw movie?
Come on, Pumpkin, time for bed. Are you ready?
Don't that look good?
I don't understand why they couldn't just use their wands on them. If it's the government, why can't they, just kill them with their wands? Again, they don't really do a good job of explaining why they can't just kill them with their wands. If you are a Harry Potter fan, you know that the use of the killing spell is outlawed, but it doesn't explicitly say that in this movie. So an audience member that doesn't know this is just left wondering why they don't do that, and why a person is put on a chair and then hovered over some silver metallic liquid that burns them alive, which apparently is painless, even though it doesn't look painless.
Please.
It don't hurt.
After this, the movie still can't figure out what it wants to be, so it just goes back to hunting these magical creatures, then the city explodes, then it doesn't, and then it sequel baits, and the end. I mean, this movie is bare bones at best and completely incomprehensible at worst. This is all made especially bad when you are being subjected to some of the most cliche characters of all time. I mean, the main character is just a weirdo nerd that people don't really like, which is incredibly lame. But that's okay, because the side characters are just full of an amazing band of misfits that you really like. For example, the funny fat comic relief, or the sexy love interest that falls for said fat guy, or the overzealous policewoman that's really by the books. Cliched characters can be okay. I mean, you got movies like Hot Fuzz that have cliched characters because it's meant to parody those cliches, but here they have cliched characters that also don't grow at all. And that's, I think, my biggest issue with these characters, is that they have no character arcs. Everyone just begins the movie in one place and ends it in almost the exact same place. For example, the fat comic relief guy wants a bakery at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end he just has a bakery, and that's his character arc. Or Eddie Redmayne comes to New York looking for an animal trainer, and then he leaves New York with a crush on a girl. And then that girl, at the start of the movie, has no job, and then at the end, she has a job. And that's our character arcs. Those are our main characters, and they absolutely go nowhere. Don't get me wrong here, I mean, you can have cliched characters, and you can have characters that don't need arcs, but I would like at least the main character, and maybe a side character, to at least grow a little bit as a person, and I don't feel like that happens here. Next, let's address one of my personal least favorite aspects of this movie, the humor. The humor is so unbearably obnoxious that it ruins a lot of sequences in this movie. I mean, this scene is supposed to be a tense escape sequence, but it's completely undercut by this embarrassing ooh ha ha moment. The movie is filled with terrible humor that completely undercuts and dissolves anything that a scene was going for in the first place. Like, oh, isn't it hilarious that Eddie Redmayne is acting weird? Haha, isn't it funny when the fat guy can't fit in this suitcase? Haha.
They went that way, officer.
Hands up!
Lastly, let's address one of the weirdest issues in this dumpster fire, the editing. The editing in this movie goes from decent to downright atrocious at times, whether it's awkwardly cutting from the A story to the B story, or just using outdated, odd, and awkward techniques in various scenes. Like here, when it's quick cutting him slicing meat? What was that? Or here, when they just reused the same scream from Eddie Redmayne 3 times in a row. Or even here, in the first scene of the movie, when it literally reveals the plot twist of the film. I mean, you'd have to be a dummy to not see this plot twist coming, because it literally spells it out in the first scene of the movie. And I get maybe they wanted that. Maybe they wanted you to know that Colin Farrell was actually Johnny Depp in disguise, but why would they want you to know that? Wouldn't it be way more effective if you kind of liked Colin Farrell or didn't like him or something, and then it's revealed that he's the supervillain? Wouldn't that have been like 100 times better than just knowing that it was him from the start? I mean, this is basic stuff that this near $200 million movie just blatantly gets wrong. Also, how can a movie with this big a budget have visual effects that look this bad?
No creature did this. Don't pretend. You must know what that was. Look at the marks.
So that's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, a movie that completely squanders any potential that it has in this movie and its trilogy going forward, due to terrible writing, horribly underdeveloped characters, a messy story, and an over-reliance on visual effects and filmmaking techniques that have already dated this film. It's just a terrible movie. And even though I'm completely annihilating it right now, I would say that my rating from when I first saw it to now hasn't changed, being that it's still a 3 out of 10. So I'm not looking forward to Crimes of Grindelwald, which is coming out in a few days as of right now, but I'll be there. I'll be there because I'm interested to see if they've righted the ship or if it is exactly what I'm going to think it is, and that it's just going to be another dumpster fire. So we'll see. So look forward to whenever that comes out. I'll be there. So see you.